Hello, I'm Jay Strack, and thanks for joining us for There's Always a Way podcast. And the good news about having your own podcast is you don't have to listen to yourself all the time. You get to handpick people you admire, people that you are motivated by, and people that you've really gotten to know. And on rare occasions, all three of those can happen with the same interview. That's kind of rare. But this is a gentleman that has motivated me. This is a gentleman who's been a motivator of men and women, and now is president of Charleston Southern University. And Dr. Dondi Costin. And Donnie, I first became familiar with you when you were chaplain at the Air Force Academy. That's quite an assignment. And then little did I would know, after several people had talked to me about what a rare leader you were, that soon you would be the president of my alma mater, CSU. And I'm sure that was one reason you wanted to go to CSU, as you knew that's where I had gone to school.
Well, I was told that was the only reason that really mattered. So that's what I went with.
Good, good. Well, I don't know who told you that, but I'm grateful. Doc, PhD, doctorate of ministry, Air Force career, chaplaincy, and now president of a very distinctive Christian university. Now, I know those things don't all happen at once. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're going through your first year. Am I correct? The first year.
I'm finishing the second year now.
Finishing the second. Well, it feels like 10, I'm sure.
That time flies when you're having fun. You know what they say.
Yeah, no question. So you're finishing your second year, but right in the middle of when you're really starting to launch some new initiatives and be very excited about everything you have that you've been building on, all of a sudden you got the same news we all did, that business as usual was not only over for the semester, but in some aspects of what we do, it could be business as usual is going to be changed in almost every way. So I wanted to talk to you as somebody who's been under fire. You know, it's one thing for a guy like me that loves the military, admires the military, been to a lot of the battlefields as a student, but it's also something else to wear the cloth of our country. So here you are as a young man. How did these things begin to reveal themselves to you about chaplaincy or God's will for your life? Or walk us through that, if you would.
Yeah, I was probably called to the ministry in high school, but I had this great fear of speaking in public, and so I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I knew one thing for sure, and that is that if you're a preacher, you have to get up at least once or twice a week and talk to people. And so I said, I'm not doing that. And so the Lord, in His infinite goodness, allowed me to take a detour, and that detour took me to the U.S. Air Force Academy, and He used my experiences in the Air Force. Then I finished in the Air Force Academy and was a second lieutenant in the Air Force as an industrial engineer. And then he reminded me as a second lieutenant of that original call. Just as the Lord works, I was running one day, which is where I do a good bit of my thinking and praying and meditating. And while running, the Lord reminded me of Exodus chapters 3 and 4. And what the Lord said to me in so many words was, this ain't my first rodeo, boy. Moses used the same excuses that you're trying to use, and I helped him out of that so he could do what I asked him to do, and I'm going to do the same thing for you. And so I immediately said, all right, Lord, you put it like that, then I can't argue with that anymore. So I immediately began a process of following the Lord's guidance, going to school, assuming that becoming a minister meant I needed some education. For me, the immediate call for me was the Air Force chaplaincy. I loved Air Force men and women. I loved the Air Force mission. And the one thing that I knew is that if God could use me in that setting as a minister of the gospel, that's what I wanted to do. And so the rest of my career, the next 10 years, really was spent to getting education. It was spent getting experiences, and the last couple of years, was spent begging the Air Force to let me make the transition from being an engineer to being a chaplain. And thankfully that happened. So the first 10 years as an industrial engineer, and some of that time included teaching leadership and management as an Air Force ROTC professor at Texas Christian University. But then the last 22 years of my Air Force career was as a chaplain. And it is everything that I had hoped it would be and more. The opportunity to hang out with men and women who have raised their right hands for the sake of the nation and get to walk with them through all kinds of things on and off the battlefield has been really the joy of my life.
Wow. Well, you've seen young men and young women in all sorts of positions, literally being under fire, literally being tested, everything around you uncertain. So those are some pretty good, it kind of helps that this is not your first rodeo at being where things are under fire and things are changing and the ground underneath you is shaking. You've kind of been preparing yourself for this new challenge at CSU for all your life.
Yeah, and I think my Air Force opportunities and experiences, if nothing else, it certainly provides good perspective. And so anytime I have a day that seems like it's going to be less than amazing, I remember staying for weeks on end in a tent in Afghanistan about 6 months after 9/11. And I think to myself, well, it's certain, whatever today brings, it can't be worse than that. I think back to my time as the Air Force senior chaplain in the Pacific and in the Middle East, and think of times that with a chaplain assistant, we're laying, face first on the ground on one of our bases over there with rockets, being fired at us indiscriminately. So every day that comes our way, or my way these days, I just say, well, whatever the day brings, it can't be worse than that. When I think about leadership, the thing that is comforting about leadership is that leadership is leadership. The principles that apply in one setting apply in every other setting, because these principles, Jay, as you well know, because you've been a leader of leaders for so long, is that these principles come from Scripture. Even the principles that some secular writer thinks they've discovered, they are simply plagiarizing what God has written in His Word thousands of years ago. And so that's the comforting thing. The other thing that I've found incredibly helpful is that, especially with the current crisis with COVID-19, it's that everybody is in the same boat. Or as a friend of mine said recently, well, actually, we're all in the same storm, but there are at least two different boats, and one boat has Christ at the helm, and the other doesn't. And so we're all thankful here at Charleston Southern that we're in the storm, but we're in the boat where Christ is at the helm. And so the fact that this particular global pandemic is affecting, and I'll use higher education in the as the industry, because that's where I am now. But the same thing would apply to churches, because every single university is going through the same thing at the same time with roughly the same negative impacts. It has been comforting because we have developed among fellow college presidents, we've developed a bit of a band of brothers and sisters, and so it is not a problem at all. If I have an issue that I haven't seen before, I can join a listserv of other presidents. I can call some friends of mine, and we've done that together. And so that's the thing that's been most comforting for me.
Wow. I think that's one of the great leadership lessons, is the role of that band of brothers, or that brothers and sisters and you have so much in common that you can turn to and go, I've never been through this. What do I do? And to know that somebody in that group's maybe already been through it, or at least a little further down than you are.
Yeah, that's the thing with this particular one. At this point, we live on the coast and you're in Florida. So, going through a hurricane, it isn't a big deal. We know what to do. We've done it before. And so that's not a big deal. A hurricane stays out there for a little bit. It usually the odds of it hitting your campus are minimal, but, you do the things that you have to do in concert with local and federal officials and state officials as far as emergency management goes. But a hurricane comes, and then a few days later, if it hits your campus or doesn't, it's gone. This is a whole new world, and that's the thing that's, again, has been both frightening a little bit, but mostly comforting, is that no university has ever faced what we're facing today, at least nobody alive. And so this sense that on the one hand, nobody's been through exactly this before, but all of us have this collection of experiences that we can bring to the table that can provide analogies. And again, that's what's been helpful. The fact that leadership is leadership, and crisis leadership especially has been crucial for us. When I think about crisis leadership, I really think about three things. What do you need? First, you need faith. Second, you need facts. And third, you need follow through. And so we are approaching this in faith, knowing that God is sovereign, that God knows what's going to happen on the other side. And we think that God has a number of lessons for us to learn through this crisis that we're trying not to miss. The second thing is fact. We want to make sure that as we were thinking about, how do we decide to go from in-person classes to remote classes? How do we decide that? Well, it's based on consultation with others and looking at the facts. And the same will be true when we make the decision to return to campus. The third element in all this is follow through. And I've been incredibly impressed by our team who has jumped through hoops to make sure that we can still serve students in the way that we know we need to and get to, but also we get to glorify God. And then on the other side of this, we'll say to the Lord, thank you for what you've done.
Wow. I love that. I love those three, I don't want to call them 3 steps, but that's a pretty good dance right there. If you get those 3 things right, you're pretty much lined up. Doc, one of the things that I admire about you, and we discussed it over a meal in Washington, D.C., of all places,
Mm-hmm.
And you were gracious and has been a great encouragement to Student Leadership University and been a great speaker at CSU. So I'm expecting you to measure up, on this podcast to that level.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to know one of the things we talked about was that our goal was that we wanted to help students develop the soul of a saint, the heart of a patriot, the influence of a servant leader, and the fitness of a gladiator. And I asked you, is there an order that should go in? And you said, well, based on my time in the Air Force Academy, yes, you're supposed to be all of those things yesterday. And, that was just kind of a funny moment I've never forgotten, because it just kind of reminds me there's several kinds of development plans, and one of them's with a drill sergeant, and the other one's when you're kind of on your own, right? So,
right.
So one of the things that I remember saying, I can't wait. I'd like for you to be one of those that go to Normandy with us. We go to our 301 trip, London,
Mm-hmm.
Oxford, Normandy, Paris, which we've had to postpone this year. Same time we were to be there as when Wimbledon and the British Open were going on, and they canceled those. Thank you very much. So, but anyway, 301 is where we go to Normandy as well. And there's no experience like it for our students when they actually get to walk the beaches of Normandy and go up and see some of the vantage points, go to Pointe du Hoc, go to the cemetery, see the brand new museum that's incredible there. But I've always tried to have what I consider heroes and heroines, those that have served our country, served it greatly, but to have them be with us when we go to Normandy. And we've had several that for the first time, and they've served all over the world, and they've been a lot of places. I mean, I remember Jeff Struker for the first time, he got to go to Normandy, after, what all he'd been through at Black Hawk Down. And so it's been a real great experience for our students to see those who have served our country and worn the cloth and are still on call we're quick to be
Yeah.
reminded, right?
Yeah.
That call, it's kind of like another call in your life. It doesn't go away, does it?
That's right.
It's
That's
a gift
right.
that keeps on giving. But so anyway, I'm hoping, obviously, in the near future, that you'll be able to go with us to Normandy and speak on what Normandy means to you, because we do our best. We want our students to really, we go to the Vietnam Memorial, we go to the World War II, and
Hmm.
we go to some of the great monuments. But everywhere we go, we want them to realize that somebody's paid a great price for us to be where we are. And I think of the two defining moments of my lifetime has been 911,
Hmm.
and now there's a lot of talk from various serious people that this could be vocationally as well as spiritually. This could be one of those moments where your call is affected because it's been so universal. So many people have gone through it. So many people have suffered. So many people have felt the inconvenience. So many people want to be part of the solution. I mean, so not only has this uncovered the essential, we've learned what essential means, right? Who'd
Hmm.
ever
Hmm.
dreamed that we'd think a truck driver that drove all night would be essential? But if you've ever been at the grocery store waiting for that to open and hoping the shelves will be full, then you realize the reaction people gave to the truck drivers, even as they were driving up to the various store. I mean, so to realize that a lot of people, sometimes the nurses, you have several nurses come and go on your shift or whatever, but all of a sudden we're having to really reassess who's essential and who's not essential, right? We're
Yeah.
realizing that some common things that are where you get some dirt under your fingernails or you got some sweat equity, that those are also those that are very essential to what we do.
Yeah, I read an article yesterday, in fact, something that you would never think about. But the article was about a person working in a Lysol factory, and the gist of the article was, for the first time in this person's life, they understood that their job, in fact, as a worker in a Lysol factory, was essential.
Wow.
And I think, when we think about Scripture's admonition that whatever we do, we should do for the glory of God. There's no better illustration than that. If you can work in a Lysol factory and know that every day that you go into work, that you are doing your job for the glory of God and to help other people who may never even know your name or even give you a second thought, then you've gotten to a place where your spiritual maturity is really on the march. I appreciate your remarks about Normandy. My wife and I, when we were stationed in Germany, we took a trip which had been on both of our bucket list, and so we go to Normandy and we're standing there on the beach, and it's one thing to read about Normandy, it's another thing to see a movie about Normandy, but to stand on those beaches at Normandy and have the recollection of what those men did and the way they rushed into fire. The first question that I asked myself was, I wonder, as an 18 or 19-year-old, would I have had the courage and the faith to get out of that amphibious vehicle and head in the face of gunfire? I hope the answer is yes, but frankly, I don't know. The second related question to that is, what about leadership? Not only would you have the courage as a young man or woman to do what those young men did at the moment, but what about as a leader? Are you the kind of leader who is worthy to lead a man or woman with that kind of courage? And so when I think about leadership, it isn't about the perks of leadership. It's not about the prerogatives of leadership. It really it is about the opportunity and the responsibility we have to be stewards of all that God has given us. The other thing that you mentioned about 9/11 and maybe even this, it seems to me, as I do the math of history, it seems to me that every generation has one of these life-altering events. For my grandmother's generation, it was the Depression, followed not long thereafter by World War II. For my parents, it was Vietnam, and then the Gulf War, and then for my generation, it was first 9/11, and now this. And the thing that I think about is I remember my grandmother. She was born in 1920. My mom then was born in 1940. I had another my dad's mom was born in 1912. He was born in 1936. But I remember, especially my grandparents, my grandmothers, that they were radically impacted by the experience of the Depression. It changed their entire outlook about money, about faith, about all kinds of things. And so, a generation from now, we'll be able to look back upon this and see exactly just how we have all been affected, and our children have been affected by this global pandemic.
Wow, Doc. I remember saying to our students, I've been there, I guess it's almost 20 years we've been taking students to Normandy.
Wow.
And I never will forget, after having 6 or 7 years under my belt of having been there and spoken on the beaches, I said, I want to correct myself. I want to clarify something I've been saying for the last 7 years, and I want to change it, and I want you to know why. I said, for years, I've said the bravest men in the world were those that when they opened that door were the first ones out, and they ran to that beach, swam to that beach, whatever they had to do to get to that beach. And we know they had way too much equipment and way too much weight on them and 100 other challenges. Once those doors opened and they were able to hit the beaches. And then after having done all these years, I remember saying to our students one day, but now that I think about it, perhaps the bravest men were those that got out late in the day. And when the door opened, all you saw was blood red, and you looked like you could walk on the bodies to the beach. I got a feeling it took even more courage than it would be to be one of the first out under fire when we went. So, and I know that's one of those questions that folks that have never been under fire think about, I'm sure. But those that have been under fire. So anyway, I had to correct myself a little bit. I think I have come to that conclusion that maybe those, even at the end of the day, knowing how futile it was or what the odds were, and they went anyway. Mm-hmm. And most of the time I've learned you go because of the guy beside you. He's counting. He's counting on you. That person in the foxhole next to you, they're counting on you. And you have that understanding that I'm here for my brothers. That's why I don't leave my post and all those other fun things I know you've heard about 100 times late into the night being drilled into you. Doc, let's talk about an amazing school, CSU. Mm-hmm. By the way, you kind of did a humble brag here. I've got a magazine. And, I didn't know that side of you. I thought you were a modest leader, a quiet war hero, chaplain, and all the medals that you've earned. And yet you did a humble brag here on the school, right on the cover. It says the Bucks break national record. And it's a little organization that we've been hearing a lot about, and thank God for them, Samaritan's Purse. And CSU broke the record. Tell us about that.
Yes,
I'm holding it up here to give you all the facts right here. See, that's what a friend is.
Yeah, that's right. We published a new strategic plan, and our what we're calling our impact statement is the university exists to prepare servant leaders to pursue significant lives. So everything that we do at Charleston Southern, academically, relationally, spiritually, with respect to faith, with respect to helping students become critical thinkers and problem solvers and tech savvy individuals who are going to be servant leaders, so that when they show up to their first employer, the first employer is going to say, wow, you're really good. You're a good thinker. You're a good writer. You're a good communicator. But the thing I most appreciate about you Buccaneer is that you really want to serve other people, and that's what we want the most. And so, the way we broke the record this year for the number of boxes for university was
And that's the
because
Christmas box, right? That's
that's
all
right.
over the
Operation Christmas Child. We about 5,200 boxes. Our campus contributed to the cause this year. It really had to do with the faith of one lady. The executive assistant to our dean of students. She said, God has given me a word. And I think that not only can we, but we should see if we can show what servant leadership is like by going above and beyond anything that we've ever asked or imagined. And so our previous record was about 2,500. And so when this lady goes to her boss, her name's Laurie Deal. Laurie Deal goes to the dean of students and she says, hey, Dean, I think we can do this. Well, the dean had been there through all these years. And he said, well, Laurie, I don't know. But I guess if God told you it's going to do it, we're going to do it, then we ought to see about doing it. And so her faith inspired an entire campus to say, let's just see if God shows up. And the stories we could tell about people who were giving to the cause and making sacrifices to the cause really was inspirational. So just an illustration of the kind of student we attract, and I think more importantly, how God uses us to develop into them while they're on the campus of Charleston Southern to become the kind of servant leader that's going to make a difference in the world.
Well, I heard a couple examples that just moved me when I heard them about, you're going and you got this deadline. You got this, there's a witching at you. You got the shot clock. And you're running out of time. And they're going, we got to go get more supplies.
Yep.
We can't beat this. We need more supplies. So they go to the stores and they're running through the stores trying to get out before they close, right? So they can meet this deadline. And people start going, well, what are y'all doing? Well, we're raising money. We're putting these boxes together. We're trying to break well, then all of a sudden, some of the employees started giving, letting them have the supplies on employee discount, or buying themselves, or other people said, well, man, here's a check, or here's here's $20. So it was just excited how contagious it became.
Yeah, it was. It really became it became a community event, and some of it, as you've indicated, some of it happened, in the moment, which was phenomenal, because these students would come back, and in different ways they would say, "Man, you're not going to believe what God just did," and that was probably the biggest benefit of the whole thing.
Well, obviously you teach ethics there because, man, I'd have rounded that puppy off. I mean, I'd have rounded up, but y'all were teaching ethics there. I'm proud.
Yeah, evangelistically speaking, it was probably 6,000.
Well, I'm very gifted in that area. In all seriousness, I'm very, Charleston Southern's been great to me. They took a chance on me, and I know you get to work with me and you're going, man, I'd hate to see him back then. But anyway, you talk about 100 rough edges, and had been told 13 colleges had turned me down. And my police record was so bad, and my grades were so bad, I was told I couldn't graduate high school because I'd missed too many days. But let me just say, for fairness, who knew they were counting? Hello, you can't just spring this on somebody. But anyway, I'm not bitter. Right. But so I had really dug a hole for myself. And by the grace of God, the Jesus movement was sweeping Florida. And I heard a message I'd never heard before, and found out it's too good to keep to yourself, and it's too good to be true, but it is true. And the Lord changed my life, and I had a big mouth. That's the only thing I brought to the dance, was a big mouth. So I started preaching in little churches, and then we'd have to move to a bigger church or move outside to a football stadium. And amazing things happened. And an alumni of Baptist College of Charleston back in the day picked up the phone and called the president and said, man, we got a maniac up here. He's rough. He's like sandpaper, but man, God's really done something in his life. And so Charleston Southern Baptist College took a chance on me, and they put me on academic probation, which I'm amazed how many in the ministry are familiar with that term. Hello. But I was on academic probation, which means I had to use the big thick crayons, and but they realized I had some challenges, and they invested in me. A professor and his wife would have me over, Diane and I, over for dinner, and they would just begin to ask me all kinds of random questions. Little did I know, they were trying to figure out why, in their language, I scored off the charts in some courses and below IQ below plant life. That's my language, right? IQ below plant life in essential things, little things like math or English or subject verb agreement, whatever. So they said, Jay, either you're cheating or you got some other things going on. And I found out I was dyslexic, found out I was a little ADD. They added a bunch of D's to be cute, I think. But this school took a chance on me, invested in me, had me tested, and then allowed me to take courses orally, because I couldn't read those little, the little ones with the dot. You got to read the question here and then answer the right circle. I mean, that was like, hello, help me, Rhonda stuff. But they tailor-made several things till I got enough victories under my belt to get a little more confidence. So my whole life was changed by Charleston Southern University. And then some years later, some 24, 25 years ago, when I launched Student Leadership University, we had some friends very involved with the school. Dr. Hunter was there, and a guy named Dr. Rick Brewer was there. And that they just began to say, you know what, Jay, we thrilled with all you're doing and trying to do. And they started helping us and became a sponsor of student leadership. So all the way through. So when Dr. Hunter stepped down after many years, when he retired, and I know he's still involved with the school, I'm wondering, I said, there'll be no way we can get the friend that'll be the friend to us that Dr. Hunter's been. And boy, how surprised we were and grateful we were. And then several folks that I knew in the military also knew you quite well and said, Jay, you don't understand. This guy's a champion. He could be president of anywhere. And the fact that you wanted to be at a distinctive Christian university, and we spent a lot of time with students. We've had over 250,000 students go through all the various student leadership and the youth pastor summits and lift tour, all the things we've done. But I'm grateful for distinctive Christian universities that put a lot of emphasis on academics and on prepared. We teach our students the future belongs to those that are prepared, and y'all stress that. But also the fact that it's that significant Christian environment and university where there's not just projects like working with Samaritan's Purse or working in the community. I know y'all involved in about 50 different needs that go on weekly in the low country there of Charleston, South Carolina. But to just know the emphasis on the Word of God and to see the kind of leadership you're leading in, I just want you to know I'm grateful that you're there. I've been privileged to spend some time with your sweetheart, your wife, and y'all are certainly a great role model for those young couples. And one thing I want to ask about, and I was so proud to hear this, and I hope I'm saying it in the right way, so please correct me. But I know you had to shut down the university, as all the schools have done. But in doing so, you had international students there, and you had other students that didn't have a home to go to. And when I began to hear what all you were doing for them, it just reminded me about what it really does mean to be at a distinctive Christian university. So tell me a little bit about some of the folks that didn't have a home to go home to.
Yeah, we have our new strategic plan. We have 4 core values that really emanate from the pages of Scripture, and these we refer to them as epic values because the EPIC then becomes the acronym, the acrostic that we use. And so what this global pandemic has allowed us to do is to put these core values into action. So E is extra mile service. How do we go the extra mile for somebody, even if they can't pay us back, so to speak? The P is a passion for student success. I as innovation across the institution, and C as Christian community. And so all of these together gave us opportunities, gave us a grid through which, a framework by which we could approach the mission that God has called us to. And so when, our first concern, obviously, for our students and for our faculty and staff, and for the parents, what, clearly was the safety of our students. And so, we made decisions, as did every other university, about how do we do this well? How do we make sure that the decisions that we're making are best for students? And fortunately for Charleston Southern, if I can not so humble brag in this moment, U.S. News and World Report about 2-3 months ago now, and their latest national rankings, your alma mater, Brother Jay, was ranked number 11 in the nation for online bachelor's degree programs. And so what that means is Charleston Southern, by the providence of God, was prepared to make the transition from in-class learning to remote learning in ways that probably some schools weren't. So our faculty and staff really jumped through hoops, but our student life staff, very, very in tune with the individual needs of individual students. And so many of them, made known to us that they didn't have a place to go, and we could provide housing and shelter and food. But also there were some students who live in rural environments, for instance, who weren't going to be able to drive to Timbuktu in the middle of nowhere and have access to the internet. And so we said, we're more than happy for you to stay on the campus, because we're driven by extra mile service and a passion for student success. And so it's been wonderful for us to see, for me to see, I should say, how our faculty and staff really have stepped up to the plate in so many ways. I've told them on a number of occasions these last few weeks just how proud and impressed I am. And it really takes us back to the decision that Vicki and I made when we left the Air Force, and to figure out what would our next chapter be. The Air Force was extraordinary for us. I was in for a total of 36 years, and we loved the mission. We loved the fact that we got to hang out with people who were committed to the mission, airmen and their families and our colleagues as chaplains and chaplain assistants and all of that. And so Vicki and I looked at ourselves and he said, how are we possibly going to duplicate this kind of energy, this kind of enthusiasm, this kind of organization, which stands for something so much greater than ourselves? And God led us to Charleston Southern. There's no question about it. The mission of Charleston Southern is distinctively Christian. In fact, it's producing academic excellence in a Christian environment. Our vision statement is integrating faith in learning, leading, and serving. And so through the process, the one question we asked about Charleston Southern, we asked this of the search committee, we asked this of the trustees, we said, we just need to know one thing. Is Charleston Southern as Christian as your website and other materials claim it to be? And they assured us it was. And I can assure you, Jay, that your alma mater is up and running for the cause of Christ, for the sake of the gospel. And, we say we're a Christian university, but not a university just for Christians, because we understand that there will be plenty of students who come here for all kinds of different reasons. God leads them here for all kinds of different reasons. And when they come here, they get to see the difference that Christ can make in somebody's life. And that's what makes it such a joy to get up and go to work every day.
Well, man, you painted the picture of CSU the way I see it, the way I've experienced it, and having been privileged to be back several times through the years. And every year I'm blown away at the growth, at the expansion. Charleston has become not only the great historic town that it will always be, but has become such a tech hub, technology and engineering. I mean, so many of the skills that are going to be essential in going forward. There's lots of opportunities with connections all over the world there and y'all are working very closely in those fields, as well as what I call the meat and potatoes services that we need from an
Hmm.
education. So I preached one of the first times I was on campus. I wanted to share with all the classmates. So we did a tent revival on the campus, and
Mm.
we had over 100 students come to know Christ.
Wow.
And people were saying, how in the world could you have that many at a Christian school? But they were from all kinds of areas and all backgrounds. And once you put them all together, exciting things begin to happen. So I do realize that Charleston Southern has a kind of a missionary approach, in the sense that not everyone who comes is a believer, but this is how we live. This is our code of conduct. This is what we expect. And then people see it fleshed out with the teachers. I'll never forget those folks that invested in me as a student, had me tested, had me in their home, pulled me aside and said, Jay, boy, I love what you do there, but boy, you should have never done. I mean, the real life stuff that make us who we are today because of the people that invested in us back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. And our students also, students who come from Christian homes, have an opportunity in their classes and other places in the residence halls. They too get to be involved in evangelism in ways that are very healthy and helpful. And so it is a wonderful place to be. And so again, we're proud of you as among our most prominent alumni, and we're grateful that we have maintained the kind of approach to Christian higher education that continues to make you proud.
Well, thank you, Doc. I am pumped. 11th U.S. News and World Report ranking. Man, I'm believing in the next couple of years, it's going to even go higher. I believe that. Knowing
Sure.
how visionary y'all are and some of the visionary things that y'all are thinking about, I'm just wanting you to know I'm all in. I'm a fan. So I'm excited about CSU. I'm more excited than ever. And then just watching how you got to be as nimble as a ninja and swagger like Jagger. You know what I mean? I'm watching right now here to be a great, significant, historic, distinctive Christian university. Pedigree up there with everybody. You're graduates all over the world, but yet at the same time, even in the midst of this virus, I believe the greatest days are ahead. And I believe the Lord brought you and your wife there when He did. That's those 2 years ago. And it's going to be exciting to see what all happens. But I wanted you, as somebody who's been under fire, somebody that's gets to wear those fancy medals on your chest and have earned them. That's pretty exciting. Now, I got a bunch of medals that other folks have given me, but I haven't earned any of them, but that's beside the point. But anyway, I admire those of you that have served our country. I admire the role you're in now. And I'm just so grateful for the love you have for young Christian people, young people. I love watching you with our students when you were with us in DC this year. And I just believe some great things are ahead. So if you need to know about a distinctive Christian university, I'm telling you, this is the place that believed in me. This is the place that means the world to me. And I'm very proud and very grateful they've wanted to be such a key part of student leadership university. So, Doc, thank you for your time. Thank you for your counsel. You're letting me walk you down memory lane, but also thank you for the applications of how we need to have our faith, our facts, and our follow-up. Those are three essentials. No question about it.
And thank you, Jay, for investing your life as you have all these years in developing young men and women, again, to be the kind of people that we think God has designed for them to be. And so that's what we do at Charleston Southern. That's why there's such a good match, a good link, a good handoff between those students involved in SLU and those who then come to CSU.
Well, I tell you, I get to hear from a lot of grateful parents as well as grateful students. So I like that. Makes me look good.
It does.
Hey, thanks, buddy. God bless you. God bless the school, and God bless America.
Thanks, Jay. Bless you.
Take care, buddy.